Well, welcome. I'm Dr. Tricia Seymour.
And I think I'm Dr. Rusty Barrier tonight, not real sure.
Yeah, right, not sure either. Welcome. These are Advanced Metaphysics is the title of these talks. It's kind of a series we've been doing. If you haven't watched them on YouTube, please go back and watch some of the others because this one will make more sense then. What we do say though is that these are for the not faint at heart. So if you are brand new to metaphysics, these probably won't make much sense to you. This is really for people who've been studying all the way along. They know some of the normal things they learn in metaphysics and they're ready to like expand and think differently. And so our entire purpose is to challenge the way you've been taught. Challenge what you believe.
And if you are new to metaphysics, we may just save you a whole lot of time.
And we also say you don't have to believe what we teach. You can hear it, think about it, see if it fits in your paradigm, and then throw away what doesn't work for you. Just know that you heard it, and maybe down the road later it'll make more sense and fit better.
And I would actually encourage you, not just with us, but with anybody, don't believe a word that anybody says, because a belief is nothing more than a crystallized thought. Allow your thoughts to remain fluid. Don't let them attach. Try what anyone tells you. If it works for you, keep it. If it doesn't, throw it away or put it on the shelf because it might work some other point in your life.
You never know.
You never know. So what are we talking about tonight, Trish?
Tonight is DNA Akashic Records. You've heard that your Akashic Records are out there somewhere. If they are, what if they're kept in your own DNA? What you need to know from your Akashic Records and how do you access them? So that's the talk.
Cool.
Go for it.
Go for it. I'm already going. So before we get started, I want everybody to just put their feet flat on the floor. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And just begin to relax. And again, take a deep breath. And as you exhale, feel all the stress and tension of the day just flow away on the exhale. Continuing to breathe slowly, rhythmically. Just allow yourself to feel the chair beneath you, the breeze across your skin, any other sounds, and just allow yourself to be fully here now. And take another deep breath. And as you exhale, allow your eyes to open and be here fully.
I think you did that as much for us tonight as
Yes.
for anybody. So,
Yes.
So welcome again. Akashic Records, you've heard of them? Yes? Vaguely? Sounds familiar? Right? Okay, good.
So the next question is, how many of you know what the word Akasha actually means?
We had to look it up
We had
ourselves.
to look it up. I knew it didn't mean what we thought it
I
did.
don't know what that means. Where's that? What's the history of that?
Akasha is actually, or Akasa, is a Sanskrit word, and it actually literally means the sky. Right? So the secondary meaning of it, though, is everything, all the unseen. It holds everything. It's just literally the fluid. How do they put it? The fluid state of being in which all exists. Far cry from Akashic Records, right?
Primary substance, I think, is what they call it. Come on in and have a seat.
You can walk in front of it. We don't care.
Come on in and have a seat. Yeah, we're just getting started. Let's do some relaxing and deep breathing to center, and we'll be good.
It is the primary state, is what Akasha actually means.
So in metaphysics, again, what we like to do, even though we go beyond and we're trying to like talk about what might be beyond it, we want to give you like the basic understanding from metaphysics so that you at least have the same ground that we start with. So in metaphysics, the Akashic Records are typically seen as something out there. They're typically seen as something that you sometimes have to go to someone, like a psychic or a medium or something, to get them to help you understand or see your Akashic records. And they are representative of your personal soul's history. So it'd be like your past lives, it'd be like lessons you've learned, things you need to know. The basic, what they say is that your personal soul's history has a record in the ether, and that's where all that is, and then you can go and access it, or you can pay someone, a reader or psychic or somebody, to help you access the Akashic records. So that's the normal comment about what that is inside of metaphysics. Okay? Again, what you heard though was that it actually is a word, Akasha, or however you say that.
Take the H out.
Akash.
Kakasa.
Okay, whatever. And you say that.
Not
That's
Spanish though, because then it would be a house.
Yeah, it's a Sanskrit word that means just pretty much everything, like all things.
Sort of the
They're
ground
all
of being.
substance, right? All right, so first of all, we do want to give you a little bit of background about what metaphysics, the concept of Akashic records and how it got into metaphysics. So we're going to give you a little bit of information to help you then understand it a little bit better when we go beyond.
So to begin with, how many of you think that Akashic Records is this ancient concept? Anybody? Yeah, it's not. It's less than 200 years old. The whole concept of Akashic Records came into being by a person in 1875, 76, one of those, I'm not sure which, named Madame Blavatsky. And Madame Blavatsky
was the co-founder of the Theosophical Society.
Mm-hmm.
And Theosophical Society, in spite of the fact that it was founded here in the US, is actually the basis of most metaphysics.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the things you believe in metaphysics come out of the Theosophical Society. We don't hear about it, we just call it woo-woo or metaphysics. But in Europe and Australia and other countries, the Theosophical Society is actually a big deal. They're very large.
Right.
They have members and lots of volumes of books that have been written, and just they're something major. But it was founded by Madame Blavatsky
Mm-hmm.
and a couple other people, a couple other folks that founded it with her in 1875
in New York City. Go ahead.
So please understand the concept that we think is ancient concept of Akashic records is really new. 200 years is nothing when it comes to what we believe. A lot of the other things that we heard or believe come from truly ancient Hinduism and Buddhism and things like that, but this is one of those things that is really, really new.
Mm-hmm.
Madame Blavatsky, you want to talk about her?
Go for it.
And if you're watching and you're a member of the Theosophical Society, I think that's wonderful, and I highly encourage that you follow whatever path is your path. Is that a nice way to put that? Okay. She was actually, by the end of her life, jailed for being a charlatan. That she actually was, she came from a wealthy family, did not,
in what's now known as the Ukraine.
Did not have any formal education, particularly.
She did not. She was self-taught.
And she did travel. She traveled to India and some Buddhist countries and some different places. And she studied Christianity, and she studied lots and lots of different paths. And what she did was she took all of the paths and put them in one big lump. That's why in metaphysics you have things from Hinduism and Buddhism and this from over here and this from over here, is because of Madame Blavatsky. So she took all this stuff and threw it in a big pile and called it Theosophy. And then again, we've borrowed from that and called it metaphysics in a modern time here in the US. But she obviously didn't know her personally. She lived in the 1800s. And a lot of people think she's a great person and was a great medium.
But there's a lot of misinformation that came out from that. Let's just leave it at that.
So what she did say in her belief on Akashic records, when she came up with the term, So again, you can
Yeah,
make up terms,
she
which
made
is
up the
fine.
term.
She made the term up Akashic Records. And what she did say was that only a very few people like her could read them.
Right.
And that you needed to pay her to read them back in the day, because most people didn't even know they existed, because she made up the term, and that most people couldn't access them. You had to be a special medium
So
psychic
much for all of us being gifted,
to
right?
get there, and you had to pay somebody like her in order to get there, in order to read your Akashic Records. So the whole concept of Akashic Records is new and was made up by Blavatsky.
Mhm. So basically, the concept is, as Tricia has said repeatedly, there's somewhere out there, the Hall of Records that you can journey to spiritually, astrally, however you want to define it, and find those little books that hold all your records.
Like a library.
Like a library of you and your history. Well, somewhere in the middle of reading the Keys of Enoch a long time ago, it dawned on me that those records are not out here. Every major sage across every religion has always said what? Look within. Look within. Okay, why am I looking without if everything else is within? So I made a switch. I said, let's go see if I can find where some of those records may exist inside. They do. They're in your DNA. Your DNA is your actual Akashic records, primarily first of the lineage of the body you walk around in. Okay? But it's more than that. Think of your DNA. Each and every one of us in this room, without exception, in the mitochondrial DNA, that's the female side of our DNA, we both have, even us guys, have an X and a Y. You girls get 2 X's, that's a good thing. But the mitochondrial, which runs through the X chromosome for every one of us, traces all the way back to someone in Africa. Okay, so you may look at me and Trish and you say, well, you have absolutely no African in your DNA. 23andMe would agree with that, but it's only the active DNA. We have a lot more in our system. So literally all of human history is written in your DNA. Being able to access it becomes a matter of learning to quiet your mind, go within with your questions, and see what arises.
So, if you haven't watched our talk on reincarnation, I suggest you do that. One of the premises we presented was that rather than one soul going from this body to this body to this body to this body, what if the soul goes back to the ocean, disperses inside the ocean, no longer one individual soul, and then another like dropper pulls out another little section of the ocean and puts it in a body. So I may have memories of a lifetime that one soul went through, and memories of a lifetime that another soul went through, and memories of a lifetime that another soul went through, meaning it's not as clear cut as we'd like to think it is.
Right.
And you never really get pulled out of the ocean. Think of it more like a wave on top of the ocean. You still have to be connected to the ocean. The wave on top of the ocean appears to be separate, and if the wave went, ooh, I'm special, I'm separate, in a minute, right, it's going to crash back down in the ocean and be gone. It's not going to be separate anymore. And we're really kind of the same way. We are in Source, we are part of Source, we are connected to Source, we are the ocean, and my little avatar here that I'm sitting with is the wave in the ocean. So if I'm still connected to everything, I should theoretically be able to access any memory of any lifetime of anybody. Now, if you look at the fact that inside of your DNA, if you've done 23andMe or you've done Ancestry.com, where you give them a saliva sample and they tell you what your nationality is and where your ancestors are from and all this kind of stuff, it's fun. I encourage you to do it. And what you'll see is, first and foremost, you could just go back. So please realize, I have memory in my DNA of an ancestor who lived in Norway in the 1500s. That DNA is literally inside of me. That is part of who I am. So if I wanted to tap into that lifetime inside myself, I could go tap into that DNA by just visualizing and go see what it would be like to have lived that lifetime of my actual direct ancestor in the
1800s.
You know, whatever year in 1500s or whatever I said, in Norway, right? I have another parent, my father was from England, so I can literally in my body, this avatar that I'm sitting here looking at you with, there is DNA from the 1500s in England. And if I wanted to, I could tap into what it was like to live in the 1500s in England, and even my own relative, because the memory of your lifetimes is still in those DNA as well. Okay? So first and foremost, before I go outside of this avatar, if I just look at my own body, I can go back on my paternal and maternal sides and tap into those experiences that my own actual relatives had. Does that make sense? Should be doable, right? In theory.
Okay.
In theory. It's in you. It's in your body. Science will tell you it's in there. Go spit in a cup and it'll tell you where your relatives are from, and that will
and in some cases, relatives you didn't even know you had.
right. And that will give you information about who you are, and a little more information about what your family was like, and where they lived, and where they migrated to, and all that kind of stuff.
But it's a little more than that. Your DNA is a little more than that, because it also is like an icon. Because there is information, because I've already heard the chit chat in my head. What about that past life I had as a Pleiadian? I wasn't human then, how's that in my DNA? Right? It's still one soul, folks. There's only one being in all of this creation. We just look separate, right? So that one being, and why I go with this is the DNA is like an icon on a computer top. You can click that link and it will take you to the cloud, which is the Akashic field, and that's what most people are talking about when it's outside of you. But most of what you're ever looking for when you're looking for past lives or your own Akashic records is stored here first. This is the first place you look, is on sort of your own hard drive. Right? Then you can go to the cloud, i.e. like Dropbox, right? And you can find files that are up there that you can pull down as well.
So, go ahead.
Your Akashic records, in my mind, I work a little more in terms of computers. They've made a lot of sense to me and how they work. Don't always like them, but they work. The Akashic records are the data logs of your existence. Have any of you ever worked with a database at all? Okay, so you know that if someone logs into that database, there is a copy of everything, when they logged in, where they went, what they looked at, while they were there. That's the Akashic records. That's all that is. Nothing mystical, nothing magical. It's just the data logs of the existence of creation totally.
I'm enthralled.
You're enthralled. Oh,
keep going.
Yeah.
Is there a future self? Future as well? Or it's just
Say again?
The future self. She's asking about future self.
Oh, that's a whole different topic, but
We can get to that in a minute.
yeah.
So we'll get to that in just a minute. So I want you to think about just looking at if every one of us has some connection to the original people that walked the planet, right? And it's in our DNA. Then again, we can go back to that original person, much like, think of it like an umbrella. So you're here holding the handle, you go back up to the stem, you open the umbrella, and the original person that ever existed on the planet is right here. You can go back up there, and then you can branch out and experience anyone.
Mhm.
So, much like we said when we talked about reincarnation, you can go and experience any lifetime you want
Mhm.
from anyone, because
Mhm.
all the data, all the information is in the cloud, is in the field, is in source, is connected to the oneness. And so it really is, you're still connected. You're just a wave on the ocean. You're still in the ocean. You haven't left. You're still home. You never left.
Right.
All you're doing is playing a game. This avatar, this body, it's just a way to move inside the video game of life. It's a way to move inside the experience. That's it. And so, again, you have the ability, as does everybody. You don't have to wait for some special person to come along and tell you how to read your Akashic record, or pay somebody extra money in order to figure out what you were in some past life. It's literally still encoded in your avatar.
The catch is quieting your mind enough to get in there and find it. And that's really the main thing that you need to do to touch on those records, is learn how to shut down the chit chat that goes on. And that's, again, a whole different topic.
Right.
Future lives. You ask about that. Can we go back and forth, forward and everything? Yes, we can. Alright. I've said this before, it's always a touchy subject. None of this exists. Alright, you do understand that. This is all an illusion. Everything that you see around you, everything, your own personality, is an illusion. It really isn't anything more than a fully immersive virtual reality system that Source is simply playing. Okay? You and I, and each one of us, are actually Source. When we go away, when this body goes away, we're out. We're done. We're back to Source. We're back into that ocean. We are the ocean again. And as Tricia says, it's very, very difficult to take a drop of water out of that ocean, drop it back in the ocean, and pull the exact same drop back out. It just doesn't work that way. So what we're doing with this is you are looking for the journey of Source throughout creation. That's what we're looking for here. With time front and back, because it's Source, it's all already played out in Source's mind, for lack of a better word. So if you want to go find out what happens 50 years from now, you can go forward. If you want to go backwards, you can go backwards. It's all within the same framework. Does that make sense?
The metaverse.
The metaverse, yeah.
Which is part of that Akashic field.
And I don't mean Zuckerberg's.
No, which is part of that Akashic field. And I want to make sure you're here for the talk, not for the sound bath. Perfect, okay. All right, just want to make sure before the sound bath starts. So good. So again, traditionally the Akashic Records, just a quick summary, was not a word, wasn't a concept until about little less than about 200 years ago. They're about 200 years ago, and it was made up by a woman named Madame Blavatsky, and she actually believed that when she made it up, she said that only special people can access it, and she was one of them, and you needed to pay her in order to access the Akashic Records. And so what we know now is that you can. Obviously, there are people who are as psychic and in touch, and if you don't feel like you can delve into your own DNA, or you can't really delve into the Akashic field, which is that bubble around us, around everything, not just me personally, but around everything, then you can pay somebody else and have them show you or help you. And you don't have to. You can go there yourself, because again, inside your DNA, every strand, literally, the strands inside your body carry the memory of every one of your ancestors and everyone who's ever walked on the planet.
Mm-hmm. And everything that has ever been, period. Okay, so the Akashic is much more than just you and your localized self. It is literally all of creation that you can tap into.
So I actually personally find that fascinating, because now I don't have to, one, pay anybody else. I can go do it myself. And two, I can also find out more about my own personal ancestors, but also more about the planetary ancestors and who've walked on the planet, by tapping into that Akashic field.
Right. And the beauty of it, what makes it powerful and what makes you want to do it really and truly is it allows you to get information that you can apply inside this game to help you be a better player in the game. That's all it is.
And that's pretty much everything we talk about.
That's everything we talk about.
From the first class to this class, is how do you play the game better?
Right.
How do you get through the levels faster? How do you have less stress and trauma and problems in your life? Because you know it's a game and you know where the secret passageway is, or you know where the key is to open the door. How do you get through the levels? How do you get through the process quicker and easier? And that's really what all these talks are about.
That's what this is all about. Learning, the first thing you got to get though, loud and clear, it's a game. It's a video game that we're all playing and we're all characters in that game. Once you get that, then you can begin to create a little bit of distance between you and the reactiveness that you have inside that game. Right? Once you create that distance, then you begin to play the game better, and you begin to know, okay, if I need information, I can go inside, I can tap into what's already inside my genetic field to find what I need for the game at this moment. I've said this before in groups. If I do a past life regression with you, and I can, and I will sometimes, but it's only if you want to go back and find something that is a point of mastery that you can bring forward to right here, right now, to use to make your life flow better. That's all it's good for. Right? Otherwise, it's just fascinating information. It's not really of any great benefit. We like it, it's fun, and that's enough of a reason to do it in my world.
But my little mind and my ego would really like to know that I was king of the world at some point, and some magical being at some point, and how great I was, or whatever. Yeah, please, thank you. Oh, finally, 20 some odd years. But
yeah, I'm still waiting.
And keep waiting. But what we find is that, again, as we've said over and over again, your ego is not a bad thing. You have to have an ego. You have to have a belief in separation. You have to have a me. That's your key to turn the car on. That's your key to get you in the game. Without a separate avatar, without an ego to run the avatar, you can't play.
Right.
You can't play the game. You're not here. You're still in oneness. So
Which means you are.
Egos are not bad. You just need to understand its role. And so it's not about fighting against, go away, I don't want you. It's about what's the role of the ego and where should it belong in my life in order for my life to function in a healthy way. All right. Now, one of the things that was in the advertisement about the class is how you access it. So, please understand a couple things. We just said
it's inside.
It's inside, literally in your DNA. So one thing that's really helpful, if you haven't done it, is to take one of those ancestry kind of tests, just for fun. Sometimes that's helpful, sometimes that's not helpful. A second thing that you can do is look at the things that you're drawn to. So even though all of time is in my Akashic Records, it's in your Akashic Records, it's in yours, all of time is there. Because we said you have mitochondrial DNA from the original person who existed, female in Africa. We all do. Every one of us has that original mitochondrial DNA still in your body today. So you can go back through guided imagery, through relaxation, and access that part of you, right? So sometimes people figure out or are interested in certain times in history, they're interested in certain times in certain cultures, certain places they go, and they kind of like are just like, wow, this is really cool, I'm really fascinated with this. They're kind of like fixated on a particular, people who do, I don't know, Renaissance fairs, and that's what they do. That's like their livelihood.
They live and breathe in the 1500s.
They travel with the Renaissance fairs, and they dress in Renaissance garb, and they just love that. That's like their life. So to me,
or some who just love the Old West, or they're drawn to sailing ships of old, whatever it may be. And those are all relatively recent, but there are things you may find that you have a draw to somewhere in India or a draw to Egypt. Those are probably things that are, there's stuff inside your genetics, inside those Akashic records that are trying to come up to your consciousness to provide you with something you need right now. And that is one way, is looking at what's sort of bubbling to the surface.
Right.
Right? Even as a psychotherapist back in the day, I was not a digger. All right? I figured if it's buried, you probably buried it for a reason, and when it's time for it to come up, it will. And when it does, then we can deal with it. No need to go digging. Right?
So imagine that you're drawn to, I don't know, Europe in the 1600s, and all of a sudden you just want to study everything about Europe in the 1600s. To me, what that says is that that gives you the opportunity to experience that. So when you close your eyes and you try to imagine, and you try to connect with that part of your DNA, and you try to have that bit, it's hard. But in order to connect with Europe in the 1600s, you can go watch TV, right? You can go watch movies on Amazon and YouTube. There's
Outlander? Anybody say Outlander?
Tons of TV shows, and some are accurate, some are not. Tons of TV shows, tons of documentaries. You can watch if you're really drawn to Egypt, you can watch documentaries on Egypt, and you may start noticing like you resonate with that history of Egypt, and you're like, wow, it's really cool, I want to go there. Or you go, wow, that really resonates with me. So that may be something you've experienced through your own DNA. That may be something you're experiencing through the cosmic DNA. It's fine, but if you can't close your eyes and visualize yourself there, one way to connect with that Akashic record of Egypt or wherever is to start watching TV shows about those kind of time periods, because you'll feel what you resonate with. And that may be part of what's inside of you, and part of what's in the Akashic record. So one of the things that we've said all along is, imagine all of these things as breadcrumbs. You know, that Hansel and Gretel story where they left breadcrumbs to find their way back, or in computer tech, they have breadcrumbs that they use to find their way through software. And so imagine these as breadcrumbs, and all of these breadcrumbs are to remind you who you are. They're to remind you, you are God and Goddess. You are Source. This little body, this little me, this little, I want to know my past lives in Akashic record, is thinking small.
Right.
You have the ability to access all of history in any time, any place, anywhere, as well as all the future.
Any dimension or planet, by the way.
And all places. You are connected to all of that. And so instead of thinking, my ego, I want to know who I was and where I was and what's up in the, open up and look at, how can I experience more? How can I experience all of history, all of what's coming, all of what's present? Have the life experience of this or that, and tap into that whole Akashic field that is around the entire game, that's around everything, that's in duality. And again, duality is, there's a me and there's a you. Duality is, there's a right and a wrong, there's a male and a female, there's a up and a down, there's a left and a right. That's duality. Oneness, those things don't exist.
They're not there.
There is no me and you. There's just one.
There's no
They're the same.
subject-object relationship in oneness, because there's only one.
And so being able to get that, understand that, again, we use the metaphor of video game, but get that literally, this is just, we're playing. We're playing here. We're an avatar playing. And if you can get that, and you can get to the space of, well, how do I want to play? Well, I think I want to go, I'm kind of drawn to Egypt. I think I want to go watch some stuff on Egypt. That might be really cool. And then you get like, wow, I'm really into Egypt. I think maybe I want to know more. And then maybe one time you dream, and you dream about Egypt because you're like really connected to Egypt. That's just great.
And by the way, that dream may be surfacing a memory from your Akashic records. Right, for me, most of my pops like that have been extremely spontaneous. Right, I've met someone or I've been in an experience. Deja vu a lot of times is an Akashic memory of a place or an event. All right, for me, a very big one. We were driving at one point through Montana towards Wyoming, or Wyoming towards Montana, whichever way that goes. And we're out in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden the scene that's in front of me was like, oh my God, I have been here before. Now mind you, I had not been there before in my SUV. I was probably there on my feet in that memory, right? But that's how these things pop up. So for me, it was just like, oh, that's cool. And then I remembered, it's like, it's there, I'm pulling it up. Does that mean I was a Native American? I don't know. Probably means I was some idiot wandering lost in the West on his way to die, if I know myself. Looking for the nearest water hole.
Probably. Yeah.
But a lot of times they will come up spontaneously. You just acknowledge it. Just be open to what evolves in your life.
So I think the message from us would be, enjoy, have fun.
Play.
Don't take it like so serious. I have to know all the. You know, it's really like just let it happen, let it evolve. If you want to do a guided imagery and go inside, if you want to watch some movies to see if it triggers some kind of thoughts, but just know it's just part of the entertainment program that's running.
And one of the primary points of the Akashic Records is really to help you remember you have been and done everything here, right? It's a great way to help you move past judgment, because once we get to know the totality of who we are, we have been the rapist and we have been the rapee. We have been the murderer and we have been the murderee. All right? We have done and been all of it. So if we have been those things, then we have to look at people who are playing those roles now with compassion rather than judgment. And these are the breadcrumbs. When Tricia talks about the breadcrumbs to take us home, we are all one being. That's home. Once we begin to get that attitude, and that's part of the shift that people are talking about from 3D to 5D. Right? We're making that shift. It's not home yet, but 5D very well may be the first level of enlightenment or samadhi. Right? Because we're seeing the unity, we're feeling the compassion and the love, rather than I'm going to take something from you that I want but I don't have, and who cares about you? Right? That's part of what this is all about.
As we talked about just in general, the levels of consciousness, as you move up in awakening levels of consciousness, whatever you want to call it, your picture of reality gets bigger and bigger and bigger and more inclusive.
Right.
So again, my analogy is if you're in a forest and you're an ant, all you see is this.
You see
the dirt around
the leaves
you
on the
and
ground.
the leaves around you. If you're a monkey in the trees, you see a little bit bigger forest, right? If you're an eagle flying, you see a different forest.
And if you have to be riding the space station over the planet, you got a whole different view.
If you're an astronaut, the forest isn't there, right? You just see kind of colors. So all that to say, what depends on where you're looking at the world and how you're viewing all that's taking place, because as you go through the levels and move up in the levels, it just expands your vision of what is real. And it stops I was a famous blah blah in past life, and I wasn't. So again, that's another talk. We did that one already. But it makes you open up and realize I was everything and everyone. I can be and experience everything and everyone and what that's like, and from their point of view. All right. I think that's it on Akashic Records. We could stop and have Q&A.
I think we should stop and have Q&A. That'll be more fun.
Yeah.
All right, ready?
Sure.